Hello, I'm Malcolm Bendall, and I'm here to present Section 4 of our 15-part series on the technology related to MSAT plasmoids and plasmoids. This section specifically relates to plasmoids, which are generated in air and over metal, which creates a net positive charge, which is more active and aggressive than the net negative charge, which is generated by imploding bubbles in water, which is the MSAT plasmoids. So we'll be dealing with plasmoid Vajra in ancient history. So we'll be going through the historical development through different cultures of the legend of the Vajra, which is an implosive device as opposite to our current explosive technologies, and that's why it appears that we lost it for a few thousand years, and now we've got it back again, and you'll see the first Vajra that has been built in modern times. So next slide, please. So in the ancient Sanskrit text, there's a recording of Indra, who was the god of thunder and lightning. Now we know that thunder and lightning are actually created from an ionized path that is first initiated by plasmoids escaping from the earth or from a body. So here you have in the hand the normal symbolism, because actually the Vajra is a device for generating plasmoids, and so I believe that this symbolism is to do with a lot more complex machine that we'll see later. But it does sort of symbolize the fundamental workings of the Vajra. So the next slide. So here again is and you'll note there's always 4 elements on the end, and some of them, and they all are hitting the center, which is basically in our technology that we've developed recently. We have speed positive, and negative, so they're all firing into each other. Again, positive, negative. So this would be the firing point, and the plasmoid would be developed and come off this end. So, but as I said, it's and there's some subtleties here too. You'll see that the number 8 enshrined in this, and also there's usually a sphere in the middle, and that sphere normally has 4 other half spheres at 90 degrees to each other again, symbolizing the quadrature that you need to initiate the creation of a plasmoid in air over metal, which is a positive plasmoid, which is basically very focused and highly energetic particle. So next, please. So again, the same symbolism and exactly the same operation, and also notice this as being a mirror plane. So I view everything as mirror planes, and you'll see that in sacred geometry, everything has 3 mirror planes, whether it's recognized or not. So, and this was given to Lord Indra when the planet was in imminent danger of destruction, and so it was, he went and asked for the most powerful weapon in the universe to defeat the demons who were trying to destroy the planet Earth. So, and that in that way he became the first avatar. So anyway, so we can show you how his initial description and the recognition that it was the most powerful instrument in the universe, but it's good for the audience to recognize that being recognized as the most powerful weapon in the universe to save the planet Earth, not to destroy it. It's actually to save others from destroying it. And as I pointed out before, and just in case anyone forgot, there's enough nuclear weapons in the world to destroy our planet several times over. So we already have that capacity. This initially, the initial history of it and the legends and mythology surrounding it are all about it being used for positive defense rather than a destructive attack. So anyway, so I'll go on to the next bit in history where this is again some old examples of this, and you'll note these sort of spheres or on the center part, which would be the 0 point, and basically I can imagine a sphere also in there, and that you've got again the sacred geometry, the mirror image again running in these planes. So and that's important because basically the event horizon for the 0 point that this creates, that it's a 0 point that the plasmoid or MSAT plasmoid form around, and then that imploded sphere and the infinity symbol that creates basically is the geometry to create a self-contained, self-sustaining electromagnetic field, and that is a unique geometry to do that, which makes the plasmoid a atomic battery with its own casing, self-generated casing. So if we move on, so again the same form, but this is showing the quadrature, and again you have the idea that again there's a central part, and then of course the mirror image planes, and the fact that this would be positive, this would be negative, and this would be positive, this would be negative. So you've got the concept of an implosion here, and you've got the concept here of the charge rolling off these shapes, which would be like a laser directed energy. So the next one. So basically, I built from those concepts of male and female and opposing spirals and vortices. This is actually the first polycarbonate model of the Vajra, and the air actually comes from the outside in, which makes it an implosion rather than explosion. People may have seen fire tornadoes and the bushfires, or fire tornadoes sometimes for entertainment in shopping centres, where they make an implosive wind, which is also what happens with a normal tornado on the ground, where it lifts cars and semi-trailers and tractors off the ground and lifts houses off the ground through the enormous force that's generated with implosion, which is a lot more effective and more energy efficient delivery of force to an effect. Whereas if you use explosion, you have increasing friction as it goes out, whereas implosion is decreasing friction as it's going in. And with this unique, if you imagine here that this is the sun in the middle, and you'll notice that also, and I'll show you something very subtle but something very real when I created this, is that I put the table tennis ball inside it, both to represent the fire tornado, which when the air comes in here, you introduce your fuel, because this has a direction going into the screen, and then that fuel would then have wrappings of insulating air around it, and because it's pushing the air and the fuel together, then you get enormously high temperatures, a lot higher temperatures than an explosive device, and a lot more concentrated, so therefore you get a better burn and more safer containment of these enormous temperatures that it creates. So the next slide will show a different angle, and you can see that the blades are opposing each other. You've got male and female here. So you've got an intricate web where they're supporting each other mechanically, but also if you look at carefully on this design, from looking at from underneath, you can see there's 16 yin and yang symbols. So it also creates in its own right sacred geometry, and it's developed from sacred geometry. And each one of these sections is a crescent moon. So, and the next one. So here goes is without the table tennis ball there, you can see there's a real phenomenon of the extinguishment of light here. The concept of even as a static model, it seems to absorb the light or draw the light in rather than out. Anyway, the next slide. So we go back again, we move on from the Sanskrit texts in India, we move on to the Greek coin. Obviously, Alexander the Great went over to India and up in northern Pakistan or in Indus Valley. And actually, if you look at when they've had a drought there, and if you look at you can go online and look at the riverbeds, there are actually related structures to these in their culture, which is the lingam, which represents exactly the same creation of a 0 point and the fact that you can drain energy off that. So that's in the Greek civilization. And moving ahead, and Zeus holding the Vajra. And here you can see very clearly you have spirals coming out, which is basically in ancient culture, in the Sumerian culture, you'll see holding a handbag and also a pine cone. Well, if you look carefully at a pine cone, it's actually opposing spirals. You can trace a clockwise and an anti-clockwise spiral. It's a very appropriate, and even the cone shape is like very similar to this. Your cone shape represents the vortex imploding, and sort of demonstrates the Vajra as being an implosive, atomic device, not an explosive device. Yep. So here's another one. The Thunderbolt, again, the same image. That's 450 BC. Just moving on. So again, this is in stainless steel. This is a very, very strong device because each equal and opposite spiral is supporting each other. So this moves as one. So you move one piece of the structure, it moves all pieces of the structure, and because they're all supporting each other, it makes it enormously strong, mechanically strong device. So we made this to do the test work, and that it is a component that you'll see on the website. You can have a look at strikefoundation.earth. You'll find that there's a video of where this would be placed in our device and a conceptualization of how it would function. Because this actually will go flat. Here you have a swirl guide in the top of it here with a copper device. You can see it in cross-section in our presentation, but we have it a circle because you imagine this is at the top and the flow is coming in, so therefore this is the top of the tornado, and that then goes down from there. So the next one, again, this is in copper and this is in stainless steel with a shared central swirl guide. And so this would actually be it would thrust from both sides, so it would therefore create its own 0 point here because the thrust would be counted against each other. So for a static motor or drive or something, so you didn't have, you were counter-opposing the two thrusts. And this is, you'll see in the next slide, how this goes together. So that explains that. And this was either test work for when that goes in there, or the air can only go in this way. So from the outside in, there's no way that air can come from the top down, because you'll see in the schematics that it's got a cone there that directs the flow to the outside of this device. The next. So here we have the polycarbonate, and this is where we're using the device to fire in quadrature. That is, that we fire positive, negative, and so to the atomic aperture, which will be in the center or the 0 point. And of course, as I said, the air comes through these polycarbonate sheets, and here's the stainless steel in here. Now, the crazy thing is you can have polycarbonate as an insulator, as a dielectric, and it works perfectly because the plasmoids will not go through the dielectric. They'll run across the surface. So that makes it perfect. And then in this design, they all would run into the stainless steel and charge that. So in this model, you've got the the same setup. You can see a bit different angle. You can actually see how the blades, the polycarbonate and the copper, interact and geometrically. And this is why I was saying that with this technology, there's an enormous amount of sacred geometry and geometry involved. Unless you have a three-dimensional mind, you can't even conceive of these devices because they're so advanced. And the way they work is amazing, because you have your fire tornado in the center, or your plasmoids create the path of lightning running through the center of this, and the air coming from the outside cools all these blades, even though there's enormous temperatures in the center. You have sort of, with the wrappings of the cyclone, you've got layers and layers effectively of insulation protecting these blades and even the polycarbonate blades from excessive heat. The next one. So here the same, going from Greek to Roman, you see the same spirals, opposing spirals, the mirror plane again here. You've got key with 12 holes. 12 is symbolic of the ether and 16 symbolic of matter. So basically that's a very important thing. And here you have the key, if you like, maybe, in legends, the key of David going back further than Rome, but the philosopher's stone, which is meant to be the key to unlock the elements alchemy. Al being student and Kemet being the Nile River, as we know it now, as the main university was in ancient times, was at Alexandria, where you had the famous Library of Alexandria, but most of that knowledge was transmitted through to the Greeks and Romans from Egypt. And this is just showing also the spiral with the Mithranic Chronos. That represents the implosion of this, that's at the heart of this device. So anyway, there's a lot in there, and Randall Carlson has a lot of study, on these transitions, and he can go into it in more detail in one of his podcasts. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. Yep. The next. Yeah, so again, going back to the Greeks, you have here the same symbolism where you can see the Vajras here. There's 4 of them, and the 4 horses here. I think also in amongst the image there. So, oh yeah, there's the horse there. So basically, as I said, it goes throughout different civilizations throughout history. So it hasn't been lost in history. These people obviously knew it. There was obviously in temples, and people venerated the Vajra, and it was very much a symbol of power. It's interesting that in Western society we seem to have lost pretty much all knowledge of it. Anyway, the next one. So here is Solomon's Molten Sea, which, funnily enough, does work on the same basic principles of the Vajra. You have an imploded sphere here, you have a resonant cavity, you have 10 cubits across, 30 cubits in circumference. So but it's actually pi, because these edges are rolled over. If you imagine it's a sphere here and you push it down, you create the same monopolar point, but instead of creating that on the equatorial plane, you're creating it at the two poles come together with a resonant cavity between them, which means the 0 point is created here. And this is filled 2/3 full with 2,000 baths of water, which, interesting enough, is 144,000 hin of water. So, which is the 144,000 enlightened ones, which gives the link between an empowerment of individuals, power, and people using this knowledge for good. Obviously, the Ark of the Covenant here, which is basically just a home to store plasmoids, because they're the atomic batteries that can be created using this device here. If you have this sunshine at midday and you have this 2/3 full, which is 1/3 of the full sphere, then you actually have the light reflecting and creating a little mirror or a focus effect here. That means that you create superheated bubbles that then would have basically an infinity sort of convection. They'd go out from the hot center and go back around and come in. So those collapsing bubbles would create plasmoids, which then would charge in this device, and those charged plasmoids would then be put into the base and laver here, and you can see that the symbol here is a fire in the water. That's why this is called the Molten Sea, by Solomon. So that's, the last that I can find in history, and I'd be pleased if anyone could sort of find a more recent one, but I believe that's the last plasmoid generator purpose-built in history, and that's 3,000 years ago. Next. So here you have this in relation to the temple. Ark of the Covenant's inside here, and here's the lavers, and here's the device, as I said, that would work on the midday sun. Next. So here's my quote. Our society grew to where it is today substantially on the basis of energy wasting, exploding, centrifugal technology, literally centered on an axle. An axle generates explosive centrifugal force from the cart bringing in the crops to charging into battle with the chariot to the axle-based jet-powered fighter plane. However, the age of scientific enlightenment, we are now in demands the use and deployment of energy-efficient implosive vortex forces, which are intrinsically less energy-wasting and more effective. We're at the dawn of our new understanding of observing and copying nature's energy-efficient, force-multiplying, implosive vortex mechanisms. Next slide, please. So here is the manifestation of the work of plasmoids. And you remember in section 1, I went through the fact that in Job 38:35, talking about God saying, do you know the path of lightning? And the plasmoids responding, yeah, we are here. Here we are. So first of all, the plasmoids create these paths, and then the potential difference between the Earth and the sky discharges along those ionized paths. And this is the same principle that we use to bring from the ionosphere to bring the electricity that's coming from the sun, using our planet as a solar panel, and so that we can draw down to the Earth those hundreds of millions of volts, hundreds of thousands of amps, structure it, not using copper, which would just evaporate, but being smart and using high volumes of argon gas or inert gases, which will hold charge. And that charge that would come down, imagine the ionosphere here, all the way down to Earth, and then you would put it back up again through an ionized column and put in the Schumann cavity to provide energy from the sun directly to machines on Earth, as Tesla did when he had his tuned electric motor with aerials, 7 aerials, and he drove from Canada to Miami. So the next. So here you have some more examples of plasmoids paths being used to equalize disparate charges in the atmosphere. The next, please. So, and forms of plasma coronal mass ejection, there'll be plasmoids involved in these ejections. Next. So, and that energy obviously creates the aurora, both north and south hemispheres, aurora borealis. And then the comet, has the tail, is because you've got a high pressure here and a vacuum behind, it does form plasma and as well as plasmoids. Yeah. So the next. So here's ball lightning, which because the plasmoid generates its own containment field, therefore it's capable of being fundamentally not interacting with the things around it. It can pass through walls. It can go through, like buildings or furniture and pass out the other side without any interaction with the materials, which is quite extraordinary. But it's simply an artifact of its geometry. It has a self-contained electromagnetic field, and self-contained means inward-looking, implosive, inward-looking, self-contained. It does not react with the outside world. Yeah, like me on my island. Thank you. So the next one. So here was my test device where I had a Variac and all the machines here. This is some photos I took as I was building the device. Simply bicycle wheels with spokes to centralize the Vajra, and these we had the firing circuit here. And we had the here's the charge distribution devices. Yeah. So the next, again, just the same as you saw in the previous slide. This is just the test firing setup. Next. Yeah, again, so you can see the 1-inch bolts and the 1-inch plate at, serious forces being generated. So needs some serious depth of section to hold it. Next. And here's, as we saw before, here's the where the measures would go. And here you can see, again, substantial amount of steel to contain the forces unleashed by this beast here. And here's the setup, which you'll see in the video with that shows on the strikefoundation.earth. And you'll see the relationship between the nose cone and the Vajra here. And this is actually the precursor to this is basically a plasmoid's form where everything spins out and then spins back into the center again. So that's black and white there. And so again, on the top of our device, our cone. So anyway, the next slide, thanks. Also using implosion, here's the concept of having an implosive device that focuses the force into the center, and then as a secondary, so you have an initial implosion and a secondary explosion, which is exactly the same as Oppenheimer designed the atomic bomb, and Oppenheimer also wrote the paper with Schneider in 1939 on the force of an imploding bubble, the force of an implosion. So the next. So here's some of my experimentation, just working off the concepts of the use of the vajra. Here you'll see that we have a mixture of polycarbonate and stainless steel on both of these. This is in opposite directions. So you have the concept of an imploding vortex here and an exploding vortex here. So anyway, this was my test device at our facility in Thailand. So anyway, next. So this, you can see it, atomic aperture do not touch. Here's because we're using the high voltages and some symmetry there. Now they're running in the same direction. As I said, these are simply bicycle wheels, and we use the spokes to center the vajra. And we use obviously the insulation of these are polycarbonate blades, so actually we're holding it and insulating it at the same time, so that we're containing all the electricity on these blades, and that each firing, the other blades next to it will gain charge and then into a capacitor, and then able to charge the next time, fire the next time. So, yep, next. So here we have again a view there. Just we created all these ceramics and to do this test work, high voltage ceramics, and just the whole concept is about implosive force. Yeah. So next. Yep. So this is section 5, which will be the next talk, which will again focus on the thunderstorm generator, which is the charging device for the plasmoids, which is similar to the molten sea. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you on section 6. Thank you. Or section 5. Section 5. We'll see you on section 5.